The adage to that is awful, but it's lawful. You have to be able to explain that to the public.
Okay. You're not strong on policy. You don't understand the contract. You don't understand the general manual. You make decisions nilly-willy. You don't understand what you're supposed to do, but you hold everybody else to the same standards. And when you want to violate the contract, you violate the contract, and it takes somebody threatening a grievance or going above your head in order to fix it.
They're doing really crappy investigations. I mean, we're an investigative entity. We should be professionals at doing it. They're not doing the right investigations to support both sides, not just, what you think, that the officers are wrong, so you just do this. That's what I'm seeing. Be a warrior. I know McManus doesn't want that, but a warrior isn't about skilled at combat necessarily. It's about being also of a good temperament.
Blu Wolf Podcast.
This episode of the Blu Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Blue Line Professional Inspections. Check out blinspections.net for all your inspection needs, including home inspection, wood-destroying insect inspection, sewer drain inspection, and on-site water treatment inspection. Blue Line is a first responder-owned business.
Hey everyone, I'm Willie Cantu. Welcome to the Blu Wolf Podcast once again. I'm here with my guest, my good friend, and former San Antonio Police Department Academy classmate, retired captain, former interim deputy chief, David Sapansky. This is our third podcast.
Yeah, I told you not to keep inviting me back.
We're on a roll, bro. We're on a roll. So, dude, I want to thank everyone that has listened to the podcast. We've gotten a pretty good boost in followers lately from the other ones we did, but especially the last one that we did. Well, You May Beat the Rap and Not the Ride was the title of it. And we were just talking about it, but I got contacted consistently for about a week by multiple people, whether it be through text, phone calls, some people saying, hey, I shared your number to somebody who wanted it. The most common denominator of all that was thanking us for speaking up about these issues. And what I discovered was that they're on the minds of so many people, not just us. And obviously we're passionate about it, which is why we talk about it, but we tend to take things for granted that it's just us, but it is a lot of people. And there were a lot of epiphanies that came from that, talking with different discussions with the people that I talked to, and heard their anxiety for it, I guess. It becomes an anxiety because, believe it or not, and I know my law enforcement listeners will understand this, police officers are generally good people. They're overall good people, good citizens, good family members, good friends. They mean well because they got into this calling to help people. And to be effective as a police officer, you got to care. Even though some people now it's popular to try to portray the officers as being uncaring, to be heartless, to be aggressive, to be abusive, all that other crap that these people, that's the name of the game. The news does it all the time. But in reality, most police officers, most law enforcement officers are good, well-meaning people. They want to help people, and it bothers them when something gets in that way or gets in their way. And it bothers them when even, like we're both retired now, that we did our time, but I don't have this angst that I need to continue helping people. I think this podcast does, but it bothers them that they see this, what they believe is wrong and erosive to our culture, placing our brothers and sisters in further danger than they already do anyway in the duties of their daily activities, and they want to talk about it. And when you're in the department, you can't. They feel like they can't, and we know why they think that is because there's a policy about talking disparagingly about the police department. And I know I've talked about this before, but I cannot say it enough, because it is true that so many people just don't say anything because they're just afraid that it's going to get back to somebody no matter how it does. And if you're in a good position, some unit that you fought hard to get to, and it's an at-will unit. These guys, the upper management, if they hear that, somehow for the betterment of the department, they'll move your ass right somewhere, and
From one day to the next.
from one day to the next. And people know that. I know it's real. I do realize too. I have social media pages of Facebook and Instagram and things like that I don't even get some likes on some of my posts, but yet I'll run into these people. I'm like, hey, I love your stuff, and well, I don't hear from you. Well, understandably, they don't want to like it. They don't want to be seen, because you can go to the likes and you can see who's all liked or loved or laughed or showed a mad face or whatever. And I guess I get it. There towards the end of my career, I didn't give a shit. I just I just did what I did, and I was like, that's my feelings. I can back it up with why I think this way, and I can back it up better than you can understand. That was just how I felt. So discussing this retaliatory ideas that these officers have and are in fear of, I won't say afraid, there's a difference, but are in fear of, and justifiably for that, this podcast is called The State of the Department. And of course, because David and I are from the San Antonio Police Department in San Antonio, Texas, we're talking about the state of our department here. We have a lot of good friends, family members that are still employed by the department, and we care about their well-being. We care about their safety, because this does affect their safety out in the field when they're doing their daily duties. So that we're going to discuss that. And I always feel like I have to say this, even though I said it a few times before, that we don't have a bone to pick with this administration personally, because we weren't, to me, mishandled in any such way like this. It's gotten worse. I've been retired for a little over 2 years now, and you?
A year and 8 months.
A year and 8 months, so almost 2 years
now.
9 months. Okay, so almost 2 years. But things have changed drastically, and I think it's important to talk about this. And it kind of piggybacks the last podcast that we had about you may beat the rat and not the right, but we have, and I'll go further into it, but today we're going to talk about a really, what I call a scathing 180 exit interview evaluation from a deputy chief, retired now, and against a retired assistant chief. But it wasn't so much about that person, it was about really the organization that's still there nowadays. But we'll get to that here in a bit. And like I said, keep listening. On YouTube, we're at Blu Wolf Podcast, and then on Rumble at Blu Wolf Podcast also. I want to get some shout outs to the winners of the Heroes Brawl. Did you hear about that?
I did.
No. Yeah, I know. I was invited to go. We kind of moved on with our lives. We kind of take care of ourselves. I have my kids, and Mr. Mom is my main retirement job, and I love it. But there is a Heroes Brawl where the San Antonio Police Department has some fighters fight against the San Antonio Fire Department fighters, and it's to raise funds and money. I'm not sure for what. Probably scholarships, it's becoming bigger and bigger. And I next time I do a podcast before it, I want to probably talk about it. That way we can invite people to that cause. But there were some winners from the SAPD, and I believe the record, if you win more on the SAPD and then the fire department, the matches, you win a bigger trophy. So it sounds like that the SAPD won that bigger trophy because we won more fights. Specifically, some friends of mine, London, Gladys Trevino now, she won. Really big deal. She's a great lady. She's a sergeant now. I've had her in some of my training classes. Just like I was talking about, just a good person and wants to do good for the department. Renee Salas, good guy also. We consistently jack with each other on social media all the time. Renee, I love you. Nothing's personal. And you hit me back. I love it. So keep on doing that. But congratulations for what you guys did And to the fire department, I have to say, because my wife's side of the family is fire.
Yeah, you definitely have to say
I have to say that, because I hate this. You'll see these little memes sometimes go back and forth from the police officers against the fire department, and they'll say, it's a put down. Sometimes they're really mean, and I don't like it. I mean, we have two different jobs, but we're very, very important and vital. I mean, because of what's included in the fire department is the EMS. Some departments like Austin, they're actually two separate departments. But here, the fire department and the EMS technicians are integrated. And the fire, the guys you see on the fire trucks, they're also EMTs. So they'll respond if EMS is unavailable or whatever. But everyone is important. And I don't like this little riff, and don't ever think of it as a riff. We need to work together, because trust me, if you get your ass in trouble, shot, hurt seriously, you're going to want those dudes there. And I'm not putting down our TAC meds. Our TAC meds are part-timers. Okay. If I'm feeling like my life is in jeopardy, I want a full-timer working on me. So I just want to say that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, as you see in my hat here, the Michael James Memorial Raffle. And it's very close and near and dear to me specifically and my family. Michael James was a graduate of Lavernia High School. He was a Navy veteran. I didn't know Michael. He's younger than I am, but he was married to who is now, I want to consider her a sister-in-law, very good person. He was taken in April, I think it was April of 2015, and from us in a tragic accident. But since then, they've had this memorial raffle for him, and cool hats, man. Every time they come out with a hat, I have to hit up my brother and say, hey, man, I want one of them. And he wanted me to mention this, and I should have mentioned this all along before, but it was just the timing of it as well. But it's a great cause. I want to show you, and it'll come up here as you see on the screen, but I want to show you what they raffle off. And to the liberals, it'll probably piss them off because it's mostly firearms. Okay. The raffle is January 25th of next year. Okay. It'll be held in Lavernia, Texas, the Lavernia Den restaurant there. It's a great place. We go there a lot. It's just so far away from me now. Once I graduated, I was gone from Lavernia, but it's still, it's a place that I went to high school. I graduated from. But let me just read you. So there's 25 items, firearms. You got a Springfield Hellcat 9mm, AR-15, 5.56, 223 engraved with the MJM logo, Michael James Memorial logo, a Ruger American Predator Gen 2 weapon here. Another, how many? Like 5 AR-15s that are in there. Taurus Judge, which I want. I need one. I don't need one, but I want one, because I think it.
You want to win one.
I want one. I don't want to win it. Since I know the people, I should rig it somehow. I don't know, but that's what I want. But check it out. You'll see on the screen. You'll see the list. There's a way to pay for raffle tickets as many as you want. Please do, because the money goes to a good cause. It's a memorial fund. They raised last year $53,000, which is pretty good. We wanted to beat that record there, and they donate to the kids with the FFA and whatever causes are in Lavernia. So you'll see in the links and on the screen provided a scan code to pay through Venmo. I think there's Zify, which I've never heard of, but it's there. And I just want to give that shout out to that cause, because I think it's extremely important, and again, for good people and a good cause. So with that, there's my shout outs to people. There's so many more, but I don't want to get into that.
Sounds like a really great cause.
Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick?
Let's do it.
Yeah, and I only want to do this because I don't want to forget. I just wanted to thank you for having me back. It's the third time. The first time was just when we met, and it's been really helpful for me to be here with you to try to speak on behalf of the men and women of the rank and file, the police department, and everyone else. But I really want to, this is the part I didn't want to forget. At the end of the last podcast, we said some very strong statements.
That's why we got all the feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to hear strong
and I haven't had yet for anyone to question the validity of what we're saying. But nonetheless, it's just us saying it. So that's why this was so important, that we got a hold of a few people we very much respect who had those senior level positions in the police department at deputy chief and above, and got their blessing and their permission to talk about these things.
That was first and foremost.
Yeah. And so we're going to get into that a little bit, but I tend to get easily shifted from one subject to another. And I just thought it was so important that one, they had the confidence and Willie and I to be able to bring this to you. And two, it's always helps or certainly validates it when you hear it from more than just one person or two people. And that's really what I wanted to say without forgetting.
Well, not just that, but people with credibility. Yeah. I don't, maybe some people may disagree, but I don't want to toot my horn all the time about it. We have ended a good career and pretty much to the max that people should leave at. I know there's some that are still there, and I don't know why the hell you're still in the police department right now, but good for you. But, we lasted all the way through. Right now, as we know, law enforcement, not just in San Antonio, but all across the country, they're depleted, right? And they're having a hard time hiring, but hiring for the positions that are being vacated by the good men and women I just spoke about. They're just looking to get the hell out as soon as possible. Because
and that applies to us too. And we're low. I mean, I don't know the number because I'm not involved anymore. But at one point I was up there and I would get those numbers. And I guarantee you at any given time, we're well over 100 officers short.
Sure.
At any given time.
And we always were in my career, but it was just trying to keep up with the attrition of whatever was going on. Now you're having officers that are close to retirement time of maxing their, best benefit for the pension, that are going to the pension office, putting the numbers together, talking to their wives, whatever it may be. Hey, I can do a podcast. I don't know. I can pick up cans. I
can do anything but this.
Anything but this, right? What they're doing. And then the younger officers, we discussed this in the last podcast, are realizing they're not vested yet. So let me get out. Let me try to find or go back to the profession that I left, if that was the case. I didn't have that. You know what I mean?
And it's such a tremendous shift from the period between 89 and 95. And that's the sweet spot for everybody that's leaving now, right? This was the most coveted police department in the state of Texas. People would spend the night out in front of substations. There were 3,000, 4,000 people applying for classes. Sometimes they ran 2, 3, 4 classes of 50 plus, or some of them fell out. They're not getting that anymore. They're constantly recruiting. Obviously, there's still a bunch of young men and women that are running to the police department to do the right thing and carry the torch, but nowhere near at the numbers that once were, because I don't believe the young people have the confidence or in law enforcement the way they once did, or to be a part or want to be a part of the law enforcement community. And that in itself is a testament to some of the misgivings that are happening at the top of these organizations.
And I don't blame them one bit, because you got to take care of yourself first and foremost. And who wants to be in any job, regardless of what it is, where your upper management doesn't take care of you, or the job in and of itself, whatever corporation doesn't take care of you with a good pension, good health care, being treated fairly.
Which brings us to the title, right? I mean, right. It's a spinoff of the State of the Union, State of the City, and we wanted to do with the State of the Police Department. So what defines a good department and a good, healthy work culture? I think, really, and I think anybody would say the same thing. I mean, what defines a good department doesn't vary much from what defines any good organization, right? I mean, see, the skill sets are different, and the expectations and responsibilities are different. But really what it is, it's one is that working for people that legitimately want to do well for you. Like they want you to matter. That's first and foremost. They want to work for people that they respect. They want to have a just culture. I was joking with Willie yesterday, and yes, sometimes we meet a little bit before and talk a little bit about, how we're going to do this, the outline, and where we want to go. And some things we're just going to go in cold and see what those responses are from us. But, to have a good place, you have to believe in the people you're working for, and you have to believe in what you're doing. Like what you're doing really should matter. And of course, in policing and law enforcement across the spectrum, from the county, from municipalities to the county, to the state, to the federal system, all those people, they matter in what they do, but they don't always get the feedback as though they matter. But then it's also feeling like you're getting paid well, and you have good compensations, and you have a good insurance system, and you have all of which the police department does. So I'm going to qualify that, and a very good pension, which ours lacks for now.
Yep.
But it always goes back to people feeling secure in their environment, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Maslow said it best, right? I mean, there's those 5 pillars. If you catch on all of those 5 pillars, then you have self-actualized, right? You have got to the point where you now feel like security is taken care of, that's your job, that's your well-being, and all those other things that come into it. And so we're missing a few of those things here in the police department.
Just a few?
Just a few. And that's why we wanted to bring our guiding principles.
Okay.
And that's really at the heart of what an organization should stand behind. Now, guiding principles are a part of every organization because about 10 years ago, everybody started doing them. I was on one of those committees when we formed those around 2012 or 2013, along with a lot of other captains and other senior people. And, we came up with a mission statement and guiding principles and things like that. And when you bring things like that together and you put a lot of people in the room, you want them to have some feedback on what their organization is ultimately going to stand for. And I can tell you that once we went through all this stuff, the chief of police came up with whatever we have now, has his name on the bottom of it. So their integrity, respect, compassion, and fairness, right? Those are 4 core principles, right? At the end of the day, if you have those 4 things, you have healthy organization, right? People feel like what they're doing matter. And then, of course, the biggest part of it is...
So let's explain guiding us, guiding the workers, or is that, the police officers, or is that going to bleed out to the citizens?
Well, so there's a mission statement that's opposite of this, right? But the guiding principles are the fundamental foundations on what we stand for as our organization.
Okay.
Right?
So how we're supposed to be treated.
Right. And how we're supposed to be treated and how we're supposed to treat others. I mean, that's very important. But just in the police department, it's synonymous that the expectations are for its members are to treat the public and even those that are the criminal public with all of these things, right? With all of them. When you handle them, you should go do whatever you have to do, regardless of the force level. And at the end of that, you still treat them with the dignity and respect and compassion and fairness and integrity. And then you carry yourself with integrity, and then you go ahead and process them in Bitcoin. What is lacking?
Professionalism is what they all kind of compartmentalize that into.
Yeah. And they just kind of broaden that up and define what professionalism is.
And it's also subjective. I don't care. Some people, and these come from administrators, they write them. They sound good, and is what I've seen. But, I had this saying, I might have said it in the last podcast, the city manager, you need to leave them with their dignity. And my question, or not my response to that question was like, this dude here is lucky he's leaving with his teeth.
Yeah.
Much like he didn't bring any dignity. So how am I going to leave him with the dignity he showed up with? Yeah. I mean, and we're not talking about a guy with traffic warrants,
But people outside of the 800,000 professional law enforcement officers in this country, and many of them have never really been in the trenches in a big city and a part of the city that's a lower income, where people have been traditionally in and out of the criminal justice system, who don't respect police the same way. But moving back to that point, all of these things that we're expected to treat the public with, the higher ups on the organization aren't giving that same thing to the members of the department. And that's where the problem really comes in. And when we were talking yesterday, we were talking about a detective, a respected detective. We both know him. And Willie was telling me the story about how he was transferred. It doesn't matter who it is, because we were saying earlier, just briefly, right? You can be transferred, you can get on the wrong side of something, facts doesn't even matter, and they'll move you from one day to the next. And what happened in this guy, he was a tenured detective. He was outsourced or TFO'd for one, task force officer, outsourced to another agency, a federal agency. And he was transferred, and they gave him no time to secure another job. It was just, now you're going here. Well, when you come off an outside unit or anything in patrol, you lose all your seniority for 180 days.
Yeah.
We say 6 months, but it's 180 days.
You get plugged back into the system of what they call the shards, right, into the lower level. If you're a detective and you're not what they call grandfathered, if you're a newer detective nowadays, you will become uniform evidence detective,
Yes.
investigator, UEDI, which means they're going to send your ass back to patrol, and you have no recourse. So when he's talking about you're losing your seniority, you get plugged back into that system again unwantedly. They won't ask you where you want to go.
No.
And usually it's East Dog Watch. That is the place to kill police officers. Desires, or kill their spirits.
And
Really,
the spirit is absolutely
to kill their spirits with Wednesdays off. Some of the worst friggin' RDs ever. But nonetheless, if you get plugged back into that system, if an academy class graduated 2 days before you, they have more seniority than you do, right? And
I don't think they do, but when they're off probation.
when they're off probation, okay. But if they do, let's say a year, they get off probation in a year.
But they won't be misplaced. In other words, if they're off their rides and they're on this shift and someone gets transferred like that, they won't move this person to pull you in.
No, but you still have lesser seniority than those people.
You have no seniority.
Yeah,
for 180 days.
Yeah,
you're at zero.
And so, just a little bit more light on this. What he's talking about, this detective, and this guy's a friend of mine. We didn't ask him. We're not mentioning any names either. We didn't say the organization or the federal agency he's with, but the supervisor of that federal agency had no problems with it. He wanted to keep him. He fought to try to
lobbied to keep
him. So it didn't matter. When he spoke to the management of the SAPD, I believe it's because they wanted to make room for some other person that SAPD wanted into his position.
No, you believe correctly. It's a chungo. Okay. It's always a chungo, and that's what happens. And then so somebody with this tenure gets displaced so that somebody that is doing exactly what we were talking about in the previous podcast, trying to infiltrate, ingratiate themselves into these circles, and then get the jobs that are more coveted while displacing someone who now this other federal agency invested time and training into, so they understand they're doing the job of a federal agent. When you're with a federal agency, you're doing the job of a federal agent. You are federally deputized by them in order to carry out the duties of whatever that federal agency is. But and just on a quick note, it doesn't just happen to them. We have some notes here. It's happened to some senior leadership people too. That have wound up on nights, Tuesday, Wednesdays off at the captain level. Tenured guys who at that point in your career, the last thing you want to do is be off on Tuesday, Wednesdays, working the overnight shift. And it's because that's the way the administration punishes them without putting the moniker of punishing them.
Yeah.
They just say,
they'll settle under, we need you here. Yeah.
And we're at-will employees, so that's what happens. So so anyway, to the guiding principles, right? I mean, those are the things that are supposed to govern what we do and how we're treated and how we treat others. But those are regularly set aside by the administration when it suits them, because they, like so many other things, don't do the old adage, right? Do what I tell you to do. No, do what I say, not what I do.
Not what I do.
And unfortunately, that's where, I'm going to say it again, that's where the culture starts to really become eroded.
And talk about the culture, because it is a culture.
And it is very difficult to get back. So to the original question, what really makes a good organization? And so again, people should matter. They should believe in their leadership. Everyone should be treated fairly or equally. You can't treat everyone absolutely the same, but get as close as you possibly can. And just do the very best as a leader that you should. And leadership is a way of life, right? Leadership isn't you should get there and you stop and you plateau. Leadership is evolving. They're constantly learning how to take care of their people, not to move their own agenda forward. And that's where the divide is. Really good leaders are always looking at how to take care of their people. The leaders that we have right now are constantly looking at how to move their own agenda. So
that's one of the 3 styles of management that we have discussed before. I mean, what we just talked about with that detective, they removed him to make room for someone else that they wanted in there. And that detective, by the way, brought up the guiding principles.
Yeah, well, good for him.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just a discussion to me. But he's like,
and you say this exit interview, this 360, it's in there.
Okay, yeah. He said this. He says, "You want me to follow those guys? You don't even follow them yourself." And this situation, I don't want to go too much into it, but this situation, he said, "Look, I get that. Like, he's willing, he doesn't like it, but he concedes to that. But if you're going to do that to him, at least tell him, hey, you're gone in 2 months. Start looking for another home so you can get the same schedule for your family. We always want to go to someplace we feel more effective and have fun at. But they just dropped it on him and, hey, you're gone, dude. You're going to East Oakland.
But they're consistent in the way they do that, Willie, because the last time we were talking about how, I think I made the point, or we were making the point about the promotional system, how they let people wean out there for 4 weeks, even when they knew. But when there's captain's transfers, and those traditionally happen about every couple of years, because captains are usually in a position for 3 years. But, I was in a position for almost 5. So,
but it's happened twice. Captains or transfers or promotions?
I'm talking about transfers.
Okay.
And so what will happen is transfers usually are dropped on Wednesdays, rarely on Tuesday evening, but on Wednesdays. So if you're off on a Thursday or Friday and they take effect Saturday, so there's no formal transfer of command. It's like if Willie's a captain and I'm a captain, he's coming into covert where I worked, and I'm now going to the chief's office where I unfortunately work. And we wound up, hey, Dave, what do you got going? What are the big investigations? And what do I need to know? Who are we up on? Who are we down on? That doesn't happen because there's no time for it to happen. Mm-hmm. The other thing is they don't afford the people at the captain's level, and we call them commanders, to go back to the people that work so very hard for them, men and women, over the course of their command, right? Be it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and go to them and say, hey, we thank you. We want to thank you. Thank you for working so hard for us. Thank you for what you do in a difficult environment. I was a captain during 2020. We touched on many aspects of that, but what we really didn't touch on is how difficult it was for members during COVID in a time of uncertainty where they still had to do their job and didn't know if they were going to get sick. And if they got sick, they didn't know if they were going to die. And we had members of our police department die from COVID complications. So all of these things are happening, but there's really no time because the people upstairs, again, don't care about stuff like that. If you were to give them 2 weeks and say, hey, in 2 weeks, what are we going to do about it, right? You tell us what to do and we do it. But if you were to say, transfer's coming in 2 weeks, get your affairs in order, transfer your command, this is your system.
That would be the smart thing to do.
That would be the most smart thing to do, but they don't do it. And so my point being is that translates all the way back to what we're talking about with this detective. They don't do it for anyone.
Yeah.
And so they're consistent in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. And, time's going on and we are all resilient and smart people. Police officers are smart people.
And resilient.
Yeah, and resilient. But I mean, and people need to understand, and I don't want to go off too much, but it's just something that just popped up. And no offense to anybody that's in management, because you are required to keep actually enhance your education, right? So with a master's degree or and then whatever.
A bachelor's.
Bachelor's and all that other stuff. And that's cool. But and this is coming from a retired detective that didn't move any higher than that, but this is my thought, is some people think they're so educated, you're smarter than the people below you. And that's not true. I mean, I know, I won't mention his name, but particular a patrolman who's got 2 master's degrees, working on a PhD, and he's just a patrolman. But he will kill you. He is deadly and he's effective. But this dude is a smart man. He just doesn't want to move up. But that he's working on something that's his passion. So I won't talk too much about that.
Well, can I say this because it just seems so appropriate? There's an old adage, right? If you think you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Because you should never be the smartest person in the room. And at some point we were talking about, hey, the police department is subcultures, right? Unit culture, organizational culture. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how much experience you have. It'll be taken into consideration to a certain respect. But if you go to another unit, you're not the smartest person in that room. Everybody else is. And you have to figure out, okay, I need to sit here, be quiet, learn a little bit about what they do, how they do it, how this culture operates, so I can get them the maximum output for them, and so that I can do my job effectively, so then I can ultimately.
I found that out after being a patrolman for 25 years, going into a detective's rank.
Yeah. With
guys that had less time than me, but there was a whole.
And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of smart. It's like, okay.
Well, my strength going into that was the tactical side. And I had to learn the investigative side. And I had guys teaching me how to write warrants, how to develop CIs, how to do surveillance without being detected.
Without being surveilled?
Yeah, surveilled and all this other stuff. I mean, so it was really cool. I really love the position. But the 3 management styles we talked about of administration, and you discussed them last time: self-preservation, to keep their position, obviously; take care of their own, which we just discussed here with that detective; management by vendetta, which it's a peaceful way to get back at you without looking like I'm getting back at you, but actually you do look like you got that. We all see it.
And all of them, that is absolutely the worst one, because now you're taking your personal feelings, your personal disdain, distrust people, just the fact that maybe you just don't care for them because of something that happened in 1997, and all of a sudden now you keep them from jobs. And that's not what leaders do. Leaders don't have to barbecue with you. They don't have to baptize your kids. They don't have to go to the movies or drink beer with you, or soda or tea, whatever you drink. But at the end of the day, they need to be objective in what they do. They need to be professionals in how they do it. That is as far from being a professional as we can. So I'm going to say something on that note that really wasn't scripted. And this does not come from Willie. There was some news that came out of the police department yesterday about an assistant chief, Karen Fawkes, retiring. She turned in her papers after 34 years of working in the San Antonio Police Department. And I just want to offer my heartfelt congratulations to all the men and women that don't have to work with her anymore. and I'm being dead serious. She's out of our class. And when you're out of someone's class, you have a body of knowledge that they don't always like. I won't get into all of those things, but I can tell you she is one of those people that manages by vendetta. She is not well liked. She doesn't take care of her people unless they're her people. And she has ruined careers of really good people that their spirit has been broken.
Big time.
And so I'm not trying to be mean. I really am. When we say we don't have a bone to pick, we don't. I'm just being objective and honest. And I'm telling you, there will be champagne bottles popping all over this city when she walks out that door.
That's the hard part, though, to get people to say, hey, because we did, and we haven't mentioned specific names, but we mentioned the chief, we mentioned Maria Villagomez, the assistant city manager. We have to, these people. And this person, Karen Fawkes, she's in upper management. She is the assistant chief. She is 2 or 3 below the chief in the upper management.
No, she's 1 below.
1 below? I mean, well, because there's 2 ACs, right? Yeah. So whoever, these people aren't equal.
Yeah.
So
and so let's just cut through the BS here, right? The other one is Bobby Blanton. So he's the guy that's running with the party. And so Karen is directly below him. You're public figures. You shouldn't be appalled by us mentioning your name. And so, but those two have the most power on the police department and can affect the largest amount of good and the largest amount of bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just needed to say that. That's not Willie's standpoint. For me, I have personal experience.
Your standpoint is my standpoint, Dave. So
from many people, and I just want to say, good for all of the men and women out there doing their job.
Well, I don't like that we have to say that, because we did come up through the ranks with her, through our department. I want to say that I didn't go through the ranks. You did, because captain's level is the last, rank that you, after that you get appointed and all that. But and I did not have an issue with her. One way or another. I never worked under her, really. But something came up when we talked about management by vendetta, and what you're talking about, what you just mentioned. She was deputy chief over the special operations unit, the SWAT unit.
She was my boss.
Okay.
She was my boss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Firsthand. But how she affected me was that. And I thought we were cool. I would run into her, hey, what's up? How's everything going? She talked me up to people that she's introducing me to. And some issue, which is a whole nother podcast in and of itself, occurred in the SWAT unit. And it was totally wrong. And they were trying to protect someone that didn't belong there, an operator that was worthless. They embedded her into that unit. To obviously for the optics, because we're all trying to be DEI, compliant and stuff. But Deputy Chief Fawkes at the time started just transferring good people, some people that I worked with out of that unit that I knew were extremely effective.
The most seasoned and tenured people,
sure,
with the most experience,
sure,
in that unit
over little stupid crap.
Yeah.
Dumb stuff that was made up. And I'll tell you, for example, this other person that didn't belong there alleged that her tires were slashed in the parking lot of the department. They were off the main campus of the main headquarters, but claimed that her tires were slashed. So they're trying to blame some certain SWAT officer for having some sort of issue with her that did it. Well, we're an investigative unit. There's cameras everywhere. They never verified that.
Yeah.
But guess what? They transferred that guy out. Got rid of a supervisor who used to be my partner on SWAT. Very effective guy too. The most tenured sergeant there at the time. The other two just had months on. She got rid of him because he wrote up a bad performance evaluation on this girl. The things that were said from her, and this is what got my goat. And again, it came out of nowhere where she was trying to change the SWAT culture from the Willie Cantu and another buddy of mine, I won't mention his name, culture. Well, what the hell did that mean? My buddy had retired gracefully from SWAT. I hadn't been there for 13 years. So I want to know, and I still want to know, what the hell does that mean?
They can't tell you, Willie, and neither can she, because the SWAT culture is a SWAT culture. When I was running the gang unit and we had POP and that stuff, and I remember we were doing some big operations, and whatever reason they had embedded a news station with us, right? And it was cool. They were doing it. They respected what we didn't want to film and then aired it later. And at one point she said, what happens? She was interviewing me. She says, well, what happens when, you guys wound up doing this and it gets really bad, and now it's not immediate, and now it's kind of in a holding pattern. I said, we do what everybody else on this department does. We call the people that are best at that. We call the SWAT team.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they train. So how are you going to change the culture? It's one of the most renowned, we talked about this, right? One of the most renowned SWAT teams, not only in Texas, but in the country and now internationally. These guys train all the time. They're recognized all the time. What culture do you want to train? You want it to be less good? And there's a story about Uvalde that we're going to get to, but I know we're getting a little off track.
Yeah, we are.
Spend too much time on that person.
We're gonna come back to certain little things that do actually embed themselves with that topic. The last one of that management style was management by paranoia.
Yeah. So I was talking to a deputy chief, right? After the last podcast, and I was one of them that I had asked, hey, can I say this? And he says, hey, you forgot one. And I said, which one? And he says, management by paranoia. And I started laughing. And I said, yeah, I guess I did. And in this particular case, he's talking about the head of the agency, Chief William McManus. And the story that is given, and this is just one of many, and I'll share it with you. So there's an LPO program that the city paid money for. It was introduced. It's leadership and policing organization. It's designed to bring people to come in, learn different styles of leadership. And so it's a 3 week, it took 3 week over 3 months. So 1 month, you'll go 1 week, the next month you go another week, and the third month you go another week, and then you graduate. So to this day, only 2 people off the command staff have ever entered that class and gone through it. One of them was teaching it. I ain't going to talk about this guy, but he's the one that was recently promoted. A lot of people didn't want to go to that class simply because he was on the staff. So they're there. And it takes a lot of time, right? I don't even want to go to in-service, right? I want to drive and shoot and leave. That's it. I don't know.
So that was like an obese person training you or teaching you how to good health habits.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? People didn't want to go. Wait a minute. You don't practice what you preach.
I'm going to teach you how to be a good leader, but I have no idea how to be a good leader. Right? And so these 2 DCs, right? One of which provided us this, which we're going to get to. I know this is important. Stopped in one day. They were there. They said, hey, they were going to drink coffee. Let's go say hi to the LPO people. Thank them for doing it, right? At the early stages, it was like lieutenants, captains, sergeant. And they go in there. They're just thanking everybody for taking the time and interest to be a part of this, to broaden their leadership styles and understanding and stuff like that. And so turns out that this day, the chief actually showed up. Most of the time he didn't. He opened the door. And this particular deputy chief is talking, both very respected guys, really good at what they did, really care about people. All those things that make a good organization, this is them. And the chief walks in, and one of them turns on cue, and he just goes, oh, good, the chief is here. Awesome. Hey, chief, we were just just say hello to everybody. You want to come in? The chief was so upset that they had gone in there to do this when he traditionally hadn't done it. He literally went, nah, you do it, and walked off. Literally.
The top dog of management didn't want to introduce himself
This
to a
is the same
management class.
top dog that the first thing he says to new cadets in the police academy, because my daughter was a cadet recently, a couple of years ago, doesn't thank you for being here. Your journey has just begun. It's going to get harder before it gets better, but we appreciate all the effort it took to get. Nope, none of that. It's no booty on duty. That's the first thing he says to the men and women that are trying to become members of this department. No booty on duty. Good job there, Bill.
I mean, it is good advice, but it's sure in the hell it's not in the introduction to brand new people.
It's not bad advice, but it needs to be at a different place.
100%. Not even that day.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's and it's just so bizarre.
Wow.
And it just kind of goes to what defines a good culture, and all of that doesn't. It doesn't in any way, shape, or form, because everyone that hears that thing all walk away with the same impression. I had to bust my ass to get through the obstacle course. I had to go through lie detector tests. I had to do background checks. I had to do psychological. Sometimes I had to do it twice. What did he just say?
Yeah, that's why I got in the department, so I can have sex on duty.
Yeah.
You know, any of you guys.
Well, for the record, that's not why.
I'm just saying. Yeah, it is an issue, but Jesus Christ, it's not that much of one dimension at that time. But that just shows you his fear of pretty much everything. You know, he is, and I've often said this: if you cannot handle the situations that you cannot obviously foresee in the department, from almost 2,000 police officers daily working 24/7, you know, there's gonna be things that come up. No matter how strong your leadership is, humans will be humans. And you have to be able to answer the questions, and then even police action that especially nowadays, that doesn't look very appealing on camera. And the adage to that is awful, but it's lawful. You have to be able to explain that to the public. We're trying to dress things up to kind of put it to them, you know, nicely in a way, and hopefully they understand that. It's like pulling that Band-Aid off. Do you want it slow or it's going to be painful, or do you want to rip it off? Either way, it's got to come off, and they're not doing that. So what I wanted to say about that is that if you can't handle that, I don't give a shit if you're the chief, whoever you are, get the fuck out.
Yes.
Get out. Don't put yourself in those situations, because then you're ineffective. Or here's my advice to you motherfuckers. Pardon my language, because I'm very passionate about it.
No, I like this side of you, man.
Oh, yeah. My veins popping out. My veins popping out. But learn your fucking job. And this is shit that you should have learned from the ground before you actually moved up. You got to be a good boots on the ground patrol officer in all aspects, right? To be able to be effective leader up here.
So this is impromptu, right?
Real quick. Yeah, it is impromptu. I'm sorry, I didn't write this shit down. This is coming up right from the front of my load. But there's in the Art of War, Sun Tzu, your men will not fight or die for you if they don't respect you. Is our job not deadly? It cannot be, you not lose your life at any point, at any time.
Is there any book more coveted on war?
No, 100%. But no. What we're just talking about, these people we've already mentioned by name, they're not respected. So who is going to want to perform to the best of their abilities?
It's the reason I asked if it was impromptu, because this particular deputy chief, so this and this was delivered to the deputy city manager, the city manager, chief of police, and the person who's right at about. And in there, he talked about exactly what you just said. Okay, you're not strong on policy. You don't understand the contract. You don't understand the general manual. You make decisions nilly-willy. You don't understand what you're supposed to do, but you hold everybody else to the same standards. And when you want to violate the contract, you violate the contract, and it takes somebody threatening a grievance or going above your head in order to fix it. How can you be this assistant chief and not know the basic contract, not know the general manual? And it says it.
Because it's not his character. It never was. It never was his character. You know, I've always said this, you can't make a race car out of Volkswagen parts. They just are. That's just the way they are. I mean, not everybody was cut out to be on SWAT. To include people that look like they were fit enough to be there. Fitness isn't what it's all about. You got to have mental be able to think quickly on your feet. You got to make good decisions. Obviously, you got to be a team player. And we had a lot of people apply that were physical specimens that people thought, oh, you're in. But no, when we did the evaluation and then also went back to their backgrounds, they weren't good patrol officers. And that it wasn't being mean. It's just the way it was.
You are what you are, right?
You are what you are.
If you were a hell of a patrol officer, you're probably going to be a hell of a detective and so on and so forth. If you were a slug at this job, you can be all the way up to the deputy chief or assistant chief position, and you'll continue to be that, cutting corners, taking the short route, not working at your craft, not understanding the rules, and then trying to apply those rules in disciplinary scenarios against people that actually do a good job. And that just, that's not a good template for a good organization.
No.
No.
But obviously, whatever was stated in this exit interview was a lot more well put by a lot more educated person than myself, without the cuss words of how I put it.
I think this guy's more educated than all of us.
But we're getting it.
Yeah.
We have the same meaning. He's just kind of going around and nicely telling you what I just said.
The management by paranoia really is a thing, and I think there's one more thing that says it's really hard to trust your commanders to be commanders and to allow them to make really, really pivotal decisions in difficult circumstances if you're so paranoid that you won't let them do it. And it's just so funny because in every promotional exam that you take, now it's a little different. There's an assessment center, but it's all the same. So there's a book, a management book that's given to you. There's a general manual, usually the whole general manual. They dialed it back a little bit. There's some penal code, obviously, mainly forced penal code. And then there's the contract. Mm-hmm. And so, but every one of these management books has first line, which is a sergeant, mid-level, senior level, captains, and then on up. And then those are the only testable positions, and then it's appointed, right? And so everyone talks about empowering your people. You have to empower your people to make decisions. You have to show them you believe in their ability to make decisions. You can sleep better at night if you have people that can make these decisions on your behalf. Trust them. They're good at it. Plus, you put them in that position. Are you saying you put morons in that position and now you don't trust them? It should be the exact opposite. And so there's a story. Can I tell you the story? So there was a deputy chief, and he was over SWAT, and they call it something else. I don't know, something technical services or whatever. But really, he had traffic and SWAT. And so when the Uvalde shooting, which is near and dear to everybody in South Texas, right? I mean, obviously. And this was jumping off. And as everybody knows, it wasn't handled. I'm not Monday morning quarterback. There were many lessons to be learned and many things that could have been handled differently, right? But again, one of the most recognized and decorated SWAT teams in the region. What is Uvalde in? Hour from here? Hour and a half?
It's 2 hours.
So this deputy chief couldn't get a hold of the chief or an assistant chief. He makes a decision on his own, calls up our helicopter. They call it Eagle. It used to be Foxtrot, but they call it Eagle now. Says, how long is it going to take to strip the big bird, right? We have to strip everything out so I can put our team on there and get them down there. He says, well, we're not equipped for that. We'll make it equipped for that. So they take out some seats, get this response team, like 6-man response team or something, and a sergeant, put them on this thing and fly down there. And by the time they got down there, this thing had kind of winded down. But they were there, and of course, their presence and did all that stuff. And you would have thought that somebody would have said, Matt, in fact, I'll tell you, I did. I went to his office. I was up there, and I shut my door, and I said, hey, X. I said, I want to tell you, that was one of the ballsiest, best decisions I've seen on this department in 20 years. You had the people to do it, and you didn't. This guy paid dearly for it.
Yeah.
The chief publicly said, we're here to help. But behind the scenes, him and his XO, Bobby Blanton, he got sideways with him. He was reassigned within 2 months of that incident, put on nights on Tuesday, Wednesdays. Who does it? Who does it? Who would be so intimidated by a person making the right command decision that you punish them for it?
But what was the fallout of it? What was?
There was no fallout.
There was no negativity associated with it.
In fact, it probably just should have set precedent.
Yeah.
It should have said, hey guys, you know what? We're going to start now training for something within a 140-mile radius that if we can help, we're going to help.
Or get a bigger bird,
They're all bought with grant money.
Yeah.
Right? So
I mean, but and again, not to get off too much, but something similar to that happened years ago. I don't even remember the year, but we're talking late 90s, early 2000s, in Pleasanton, Texas, when several troopers got ambushed and killed and shot. And Pleasanton isn't that
one county guy.
Yeah, okay. So it's not that far away. They wanted to use, because they couldn't find the shooter. He'd set up in an elevated position for an ambush, and luckily somebody in management, I don't remember the name, because I wouldn't mind mentioning them, but it made a good decision to say, hey, send a helicopter over there with the FLIR system, because it was at night, so they could look for the shooter. And it was nixed by a deputy chief. Now I remember that guy.
Assistant chief.
Was it an assistant chief at the time? Okay, so I remember that guy, but this guy did it anyway. Yeah. He says, yeah, whatever, screw it, and sent him. Again, another ballsy move, another good move for that, and they were instrumental in helping with that situation that was already bad.
Yeah.
But let's move on, because we were wanting to get into this 180 evaluation exit interview. So this deputy chief, I had talked to him. I know you had talked to him. You can correct me if I'm kind of wrong in these details, but this guy is very well educated, very calm demeanor, super calm, and so there's some things that come out of these people, and you're like, whoa, that guy, and which tells you that they're passionate.
At one point, he was probably slated to be the chief of police.
Okay, I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
he still can be.
Yeah,
he still can be. I mean, if you wanted to put in for that, I wouldn't mind that. But
well, this probably isn't going to lend in.
No, but not with this
favor.
Not with this city management. They're the other half of this problem here. So nonetheless, 180 evaluation exit interview on his superior. And we've already mentioned, did we mention his name?
No, we're not going to.
We're not going to.
Or superior?
His superior.
Oh, Jimmy Reyes.
Okay. So we'll go there.
Former assistant chief.
Former assistant chief, who's retired now. But we're going to put some stuff up on the screen that you're going to see when we talk about it, that some of it's actually kind of funny, but it's sad that it had to go that far. So
can I set it up?
Go ahead.
So I was the XO at the patrol division the last 9 months of my career. He was my boss, and we would have a lot of conversations. And he would tell me, and I had talked to him. I said, "Can I share some of these conversations?" And he said, "Yeah." And when we would have these conversations, he would talk to me about how not just he, but other deputy chiefs would literally be on Sundays, get themselves so full of stress and anxiety about coming to work because there was such a negative environment. They just didn't know what was going to happen. He even told me one time he feared that he might get demoted for no reason at all. He wasn't really liked down in there. He had his own opinion. And so when he left the department, I believe he left in September, he wrote this exit interview. And the way it works is everybody has the ability to give an exit interview, right?
But isn't that a performance evaluation anyway? Stuff that we went through?
What he did is he put it on a 180 evaluation of Assistant Chief Jimmy Reyes. But they give you an exit interview. But
I remember getting my performance evaluations like that.
Yeah, so this is the form he used, but the exit interview is very different. Like, tell me, would you recommend this career? Would you like this career? Mm-hmm. They very rarely ever gave it out. Most people retired didn't even know it existed. He went so far as to put this on an eval for his boss, because he felt that his boss, this guy, was probably the biggest impediment to not only his position, but also regularly would convey negative messages to the chief of police and the other assistant chief about him. So obviously, so he started reading. So he sent this to Maria Villagomez, Eric Walsh, William McManus, Jimmy Reyes.
And so to be clear, he emailed it to them, and I saw the email where Maria Villagomez, the deputy city manager, is that what they call it? Deputy city
over public safety.
Yeah, said, received your email. So she got it. Okay, and this was in October of 2022.
Yeah, and it was right after he left. So he was burning a little time.
Yeah,
but he sent it. And so one of the interesting factors. Do you want to set it up?
Go ahead.
So of this, right, and It just looks pretty much like this. And I highlighted some excerpts because there's so much of it, right? But 15 out of 18 areas, he gave him a below expectations. That's the worst you can get. Like, so there's exceeds expectations, meets expectations, below expectations. 15 of 18.
Yeah, but the other two, the two where he met expectations
was like nothing. Like
were like
nothing. Skills.
Well, and I would disagree with the general appearance. And again, I'm not trying to be mean.
Yeah, he always looked sloppy.
Yeah,
I think he was trying not to pour it on.
No, yeah, and again, that's him. But I used to get these. I have these issues, and me and my smart ass, I'd be like, there's this policy and procedure about conduct unbecoming an officer, and that can apply to so many things. And my smart ass would say, have you seen some friggin' patrolmen, some officers walk out in uniform? This dude, the moment he walks out in public dressed like that, looking like that, is unbecoming.
Yeah, sloppy.
Right.
So anyway,
that's one of them.
I highlighted some of these things. I'm going to go through them. I asked Willie if I could just jam through them.
Yeah.
Try to read them for you. So one is like readiness and competency. This is what this deputy chief wrote about this assistant chief, Jimmy Reyes. You tend to see everything in black and white with little or no ability to think abstractly, conceptually, or to see other perspectives. You dwell on minute and trivia instead of overall outcomes or results of a task. Skipping down a little further, your irrelevant questions at these scenes only serve to interfere with operations, cast doubt on officers' ability, and highlight your reluctance to allow officers to make decisions. That's not good things.
And let me speak to that, because I have I've worked under that guy before, and what that tells me, obviously, this retired DC kind of validates it in a way, but I saw it myself. And that's just a person with really a lack of common sense, which again, and if you don't have common sense within, or kind of what I call street sense in the police department, you develop it as you come up from the ground up. And so if you've reached this point and you need to ask stupid little questions that have nothing to do with anything, like, hey, that's a new tire there. Well, is there nitrogen in there, or is it just regular air? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
As long as it's just inflated, it's up. You know what I mean? That's this guy.
Yeah. Well, he also didn't have any confidence and lacked a lot of self-esteem. So decision making was something that he dreaded.
Big time.
So the other one is initiative, cooperation, responsiveness, below expectations. You tend to want to please superiors at the expense of others. Now, we talked about that in that last podcast, right? These guys are on that path where they do anything that they have to in order to get those next levels, even treading on the people that they should. So that's a validating statement, right? So that's an agenda-based person who's pushing his own agenda at the good of everyone.
Sure. So to that right there, someone said this, discussing this guy. I don't remember the situation, what it was. Actually, I do, but I don't want to tell the story. It'll take too much time. But someone, and I don't remember this person's name, but he said, Jimmy Reyes has not had an original thought since before he got on the police department.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And I was like, wow, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, what decision do I need to make that I think he'll be okay?
And even if he had an original thought, he would wrestle with it so much that he couldn't get it out.
Sure.
Like he doubts his own thing. Interpersonal skills. You hear, but you don't listen. And you especially don't listen to yourself. That's exactly the point we were just making, right? Your failure in this category has resulted in no one wanting to work in your division. When candidates were approached about this blank vacancy, all of them expressed their distrust and dislike for you for reasons for not applying for the position. So in other words, that guy works there. I don't work there.
Yeah.
Your lack of trust in others directly influences how others view you and this department. There is little trust in you by others, and you don't even trust yourself, as evidenced by your actions. Yeah. And if someone said that by me, man, I think I would just go meet a therapist. Right? Customer service, commitment, engagement. Don't forget that your staff and officers are also your public and deserve you serving them. That was the point we made earlier, right? Your demeanor towards subordinates is sometimes in conflict with SAPD's guiding principles: respect, fairness, integrity, compassion. Problem solving and judgment, below expectations. You're mentally and physically exhausting to your subordinates with your inability to make a decision and with your what-ifing everything from the mundane to the complex. Your constant overthinking of everything only leads resentment and promotion, mediocrity, and an uninspired work product from subordinates. Just what you want at the head of the organization, right, Chief? Laws and policies. Your knowledge of the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, and the general manual is extremely limited. You almost violated an officer's Fourth Amendment protections when you ordered his personal bag to be searched when you had no right to do so. You failed to act when a subordinate advised you that another one of your subordinates, says Falks, right? We talked about her, violated policy when she cussed out a female captain. Took no action. You said, let it be. Leadership. Produce indecision, hyper-consciousness have been the cause with you rather than the exception. And your lack of self-awareness of this, you demonstrated over and over that you don't trust your subordinates. You are unable to lead yourself. When a subordinate brought to your attention that one of your deputy chiefs cussed out and belittled a captain, we just talked about it, under her command, contrary to the disciplinary policy, you failed to address it, and you ordered your subordinates to leave it alone because she is liked by the chief and liked by the deputy city manager, Maria B.S. Olmez. None of that going on, right? Decisiveness, below expectations. This causes your subordinates to keep things from you and minimizes creativity and teamwork. It also leads to you having little credibility with your subordinates and staff. Your overt display of indecisiveness causes anxiety and in some cases animosity amongst your coworkers. Technical competence, below expectations. You tend to default to others might think of your decision making, those others being the people that influenced him. Activities, below expectations. Supervising and managing. Email messages yourself for fear that you will be perceived as a jerk. Oh, you won't send your email message yourself for perceived as a jerk, suggesting that you prefer your subordinates appear to be jerks. You said to one of your subordinates, these officers must think I'm a real jerk, but who cares? It's their job, as I get paid. What part of the guiding principle is that falling? Greed.
There might be an update here soon.
And so, anyway, there's lots of values to that. I know we run out of time fast, and I just wanted to kind of show you what is thought. When we made the statement in the last podcast about what a shit show, we said it from first-hand experience, from actually seeing it, from being a part of that environment, and it was important for us to get this out to you. There's others that feel the same way. There was another deputy chief. Can we talk about the homicide thing?
Yeah.
There was a situation where there was a situation where a white person in the community had a license to carry, a black individual that probably for all intents and purposes was homeless but was kind of big in stature. The guy walks into the store, the guy asked him for money, the guy said doesn't have any, guy leaves him alone. Coming back out, the guy sees he has a lottery ticket, some money in his hand, the guy sees it, gets really aggressive with him, says, hey, you said you didn't have any money, give us some money. The guy keeps walking to his car. The guy becomes more aggressive. This guy's a license to carry. And again, this is just me kind of paraphrasing. I'm not going to catch on every detail. And the guy became so aggressive that the guy feared for his life, pulled a weapon and shot him. So the shooter is white, the victim is black. And so there were witnesses at the scene, citizens that said, hey, this guy was super aggressive. He was aggressive with me. He was aggressive with him. I thought he was going to assault the guy. And so the homicide people there get all the information. The assistant chief, Bobby Bland, gets involved, and he was a former homicide guy, say a former effective homicide guy. He was just assigned there. And they talked to the district attorney's office and said, hey, we don't feel there's enough arrest here, for an arrest here. Kind of like what we were talking about. You can be
self-defense. It was self-defense.
We're going to take this over, run it through the grand jury, and let it take its course. The assistant chief, Bland, didn't like that fact that he was being questioned and ordered them to arrest. So they ultimately arrested him. A couple of weeks later, this keeps going back and forth. The entire chain of command of homicide is transferred out. That's the captain, lieutenant, 2 sergeants, kind of like the SWAT situation.
Good guys.
Really good guys.
Yes.
Guys that knew what they were doing. And you're losing that experience just because this guy got his feelings hurt.
And the captain eventually retired.
He retired.
because of the flack that came out of that.
Yeah.
Right. He eventually retired because of that bullshit.
He didn't retire right away because he
not right away, but they were jacking with him. It affected him. Yeah,
they put him on.
Good guy.
Yeah, they put him on nights where they put everybody. Right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, this other deputy chief, another well-respected guy, goes to this guy Blanton as his peer because they're both deputy chief, and says, "Hey, Bobby, what you did is wrong, man. You're wrong. These guys are right. They talked to the DA, And he says, I went to him as a peer to discuss it because I'm the deputy division commander, the deputy chief over that section, and he just started berating me." And so finally I told him, "Hey, no, knock that shit off, dude. You're talking to me like that. I don't give a shit who your daddy is, right?" And so he leaves. 2 weeks later, he's transferred 2 nights at great cost to his own position for standing up for his people. So these are kind of things when we say it's a shit show.
So many stories like that.
Over and over and over again. Willie already established that Maria Villagomez knows these things exist, but they do nothing about it.
Because she's more concerned with DEI bullshit.
Yeah.
She is. And I'm sorry, Nick, because when you put these in the thumbnail, they're going to have to be a lot of sirens to cut out my bad words in YouTube. But I mean, you guys didn't come here to listen to me talk. I don't know. I just talk the way I talk. You want me to be real? Yeah, I cuss. I used to have this thing where people would get all mad. Well, you're cussing at me. Look, when I get upset, there's 2 things. I'm either going to cuss at you or I'm going to fucking hit you. So you decide which one you want.
They take the cussing.
They take the cussing usually, and it's an ongoing joke. But nonetheless, there's so many stories about what you're talking about there. And again, that's management by vendetta.
Yeah.
Right at that point, recently, and real quick, because I think I want to throw this in there. 2 officers, I worked with the LaHood Norton Law Group as an expert to help defend these officers that can get indicted, because that's a whole nother side of something. Get indicted by the Soros-bought DA, Joe Gonzalez. We all know that's true. He got the most money out of anybody in Texas, almost $1.5 million, to beat out the wrong Democrat, Nico LaHood. And we see what he's doing. But this unit that these 2 officers came from, street crimes, there was an incident, that same incident that happened, and they did this to these officers. The sergeant stood up and he took their side and he spoke up in front of someone that we talked about last time, who is now a deputy chief that got promoted. We can mention his name, Miles Earwood, and he said something legitimately, standing up for his guys like they expect of you. And next thing you know, he's transferred out because he bucked him. Didn't like that. You got to have a thicker spine.
This management by vendetta is a real thing,
Well, it means you don't have it doesn't mean you have it means you don't have a spine, that you can't understand and take that. And maybe, pull them in your office, have a discussion about it. And you can say, hey, man, I get what you're doing. Say what you need to say. But you ruin these people's lives.
There was an assistant chief who I shut the door with, and I said what I had to say, and we went right around. Just like you and I, he was my boss for all intents and purposes. And I didn't like something he said, and I said, hey, can I talk frankly? Can I talk to you as the guy? And he goes, yeah. And we said a lot of things that day. 2 days later, called me up. Hey, man, you want to go have coffee? That's being a professional.
Yeah.
What you guys are doing is not being a professional. You're carrying your agendas and you're moving them forward. You're impacting people's career paths and you're impacting their zest for the job. There was an I&I conference I went to. San Bernardino guy, real quick, right? He was also the guy, he's a narcotics guy, made lieutenant. He was the guy that engaged the San Bernardino shooters. You remember when they went in and shot all those people? He were all going to do a warrant. They hear it, they go, hell of a firefight. This guy's a hero. Comes up, he's a keynote speaker, he's walking through it. There's over 2,000 people in this conference. And all of them pretty tenured because it's a narcotics conference, right? And so we're talking, and the first thing he says, I'm going to tell you everything that happened that day. But before, I want to tell you that even after all of that, I am to this day more afraid of my administration than I am of the people that tried to kill me that day. How many of you feel the same way? Everybody raised their hand.
Powerful.
And I never forgot that. One is, I'm like, this dude's still an active lieutenant with the San Bernardino Police Department. He's a hero for sure. But man, and that's when I realized when we're sitting here telling you we're talking about this department, it's every department. It's everywhere.
Yeah. No, it's the war on police is real, and we're losing, no doubt. And we're losing because of fucking cowards in the upper administration, cowards in city government, And a lot of that has to do with their political affiliations is what it does.
And
but
so-
if you wonder why crime is high, and yes, it's fucking high, I don't give a shit. I know it's around election time, but the laws of just natural order tell you that there's no way crime is down in any friggin' city, a major city at least in the United States, if we don't have enough police officers. And of those police officers, they're not doing much because they've gone into self-preservation mode, understandably. Okay, you have more illegal aliens in this country that are committing crimes. Okay, and those three factors alone don't create lower crime. How fucking stupid can people be?
And we pulled the numbers on officer
Right.
shootings, and there they are. You can read them for them. So I went back to 2019, I think. So the total number is circled right here.
144 officer involved
Last
shootings.
year was the most. Now 2 years ago, 2023 was the most.
35,
And this year to date, we're at
21.
So if you look at all these, I was telling Willie last night, if you look at all, you can read all the numbers for all those just so they can see them.
Yeah, we're at 21. To 2022 was 16. 2021 was 27. 2020 was 23. And of course, 2019, 22.
So we were talking, so if you average that out and just the mean, right? So there's about 2 a month, right? Maybe not 2 every month, but the average, right? That's a lot of shootings. That's a lot of officer involved shootings. Now, some of these multiple officers fired at the scene, but very few. Most of these are just single shootings. So it's not getting easier for the men and women out there. They deserve leaders that understand how difficult it is for them to do their job in an environment where the people that are out there trying to kill them aren't pulling the same BS that you're pulling on.
Yeah.
You know, so I was asking you yesterday before we end, 'cause I think we're probably close. What two pieces of advice would you give to new officers, operationally and administratively?
Get out. No, I'm kidding. No, man. I have people ask me a lot, whether it be somebody who's got a son or daughter that want to get in law enforcement, and I struggle with advising them to do it and help them get into it, and then just not get into it at all. I struggle so bad. One guy that I just went ahead and did it because I saw his passion, he ended up getting fired in the academy over some DEI bullshit. Yeah. And I was like, see what I mean?
Yeah.
Tried to tell you, and good guy. And I mean, things worked out for the best. He's got a better job now. He's making a shitload more money, but nonetheless, I struggle over it because it is a good calling. It's a good job. We have good benefits. Retirement is great, all that other stuff. But you gotta, just like that detective said in there, it used to be survival on the streets. Now it's survival of your administration. And getting someplace you can, ride your time out to stay in this organization because, there is a good pension, a good health care at the end, so you just got to survive that. But my advice is, and this is not to prevent things because it can still happen. We're seeing officers do 100% justifiable actions, physical actions, and they're still getting indicted by this piece of shit DA, Joe Gonzalez. Okay. And it's all optics and feelings is what it is because the department's not helping them explain away their justified uses of force. They're not. They're actually handing them over. They're doing really crappy investigations. I mean, we're an investigative entity. We should be professionals at doing it. They're not doing the right investigations to support both sides, not just, what you think that the officers are wrong. So you just do this. That's what I'm seeing when I'm doing this work with these attorneys. It's not just the Hood Norton Law Group. I work with other attorneys as well. But I'm seeing crappy reports. I'm seeing really bad articulation, which is part of the crappy reports, which tells me you need to learn your craft. Learn it. It's a professional job that you have. It's a profession. You need to practice law enforcement like attorneys practice law.
Like basketball players
practice all the time. Yes. That's why they're professionals. You're a professional. Learn how to protect yourself. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, because you know how that's going to end up. But we got to know that, and then with your actions, you need to know how to articulate them using the laws that we fall under, our penal code, our criminal code of procedure, the Constitution, case law. Case law is actually, I won't say it's easy because there's so much out there, but you learn that and you articulate it here. I'm not saying that they're going to go, oh, great report, I guess we can't do anything to them. They're still going to do it to you. And unfortunately, you're going to take that ride, which we talked about last podcast. You're going to get the rap and the ride. But in the end, and what we're seeing, when everything is compiled together and judges and juries and attorneys explain this, you win. I don't know if you win because you get beat to shit for 40 years. You have to find a new profession, a way to feed your family, survive the stress and all that other stuff. But if you're going to be in this profession, learn it well, be good at it, have good temperament, be a warrior. I know McManus doesn't want that, but a warrior isn't about skilled at combat necessarily. It's about being also of a good temperament and good judgment. But being effective and deadly, just like the friend of mine that I just described. Guy's smarter than I think all three of us in this room, but the dude is good at controlled aggression and at controlled violence. Be good at it. Don't think that I can talk to people. This de-escalation shit, which I think is shit, it's a word. There's a time and a place for it, understandably. But it is not going to work as prevalent as they're selling it to you that it will. It's not. It's become a tactic, okay? And I don't teach it. I won't teach it because I don't believe in it. You're good people. I just mentioned that. They hire good people. You're already going to be a certain way. You're already going to tell people, hey, take it easy, But when that doesn't happen, then what? If you don't have any tools in your toolbox because you haven't been training or whatever, your mind's going to go to shit.
And you covered that, exactly what I would say on the first part. The second part, my advice would be, and I gave my own daughter this advice, and I know she didn't because she thought I was her Wikipedia, but it's read your contract, read your general manager, know the manual, know the rules. They will use those rules against you.
Use those rules against them.
Yes. And so you know that the administration are not your friends, not in this environment. They will do you when they can or when they have to. Learn your rules. In particular, 200 of the rules are reg. That's 90% of the complaints are come out of that thing, which is a plug in, play, fit everything, right? And so take the time to read it. Besides, if you ever get to the point where you're going to promote, you're going to need it anyway. So just look at it as a homework assignment that you're supposed to be doing. 1, to keep your job, and 2, to further your career.
Understandably. Understand there are also guidelines. They're not necessarily black and white. I mean, they're a lot of them are so vague that you can expound off of those. Be a gamer. That's what I was. You say that, but I interpret it as this. I mean, again, in the end, it comes down to what you were perceiving at the time based on the totality of the circumstances. Graham versus Connor. That is the most important case law that you need to understand and be effective at explaining those actions referring to that. But, man, this was a good discussion. We got off into some tangents that I think were important. Maybe we got off a little bit long on them, but as you can tell, we're passionate about this. We are not, I know that there's going to be some people that say, I thought you didn't have a bone to pick with anybody. It's kind of hard to talk about people that affected your life in particular and lives of your friends without having some emotion attached to it, okay? But it is important, which is obviously why we decided to discuss this topic. It's important to us. And it's what's going on in the department. I mean, right now, it's going on in this department. And I guarantee you, whoever's out there looking at us, you're nodding your head. And if you didn't nod your head multiple times in this podcast, then I don't know, you're maybe brand new or whatever, or you were just as bad as those guys, because that is real in what's happening here. Did you want to say something?
The only thing I wanted to say is, just because we're talking about particular things, it all comes from a work-related perspective. We're not attacking anyone personally. We haven't attacked anyone personally, anyone outside of the work environment. And so when we say certain things about people that maybe don't sound very nice, those come from experience that those people created. They did it. They treated people that way. They created the environment. They created the perception. So if you're going to be a public figure, take it.
Yeah, if you're going to be in that position where you might get burned,
or do better.
Yeah, or do better. That's the main thing. Be good at that crap too. But Dave, thank you for being here again. Thanks to Public Alliance for again doing this with us and and trusting us, putting everything together to make us look good, I think. There's no filters on us, by the way. We look this great. I'm just saying.
Which is terrible.
Which is terrible. But nonetheless, thank you all. Please give us feedback, man. I won't provide my number here, but those that do have it, mine and or David's, we'd love to hear back from you. We want to hear your honest opinion of what we talked about. I'm sure there'll be stories like, hey, you should say this. Well, we can't create a podcast every time we learn a new story of the things related to this, but I hope it makes you feel better that someone's discussing it. And keep listening. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Rumble channel. I'm trying to grow. I'm retired. I'm not making any money off this yet. I hope to eventually at some point. But I appreciate everyone, and you guys be safe.